all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown. With me for the very first time is our Sandwich Sage. Say hi, Sandwich Sage.
Hi, Sandwich Sage.
Jake, thank you so much. This is so exciting. I'm such a huge fan of your sandwich eating, which is a weird thing to say, but it's such a fun series. My wife loves it. It's one of those, you and like B. Dylan Hollis, who does the like old school bakes, are people, when I see your videos pop up, I literally like them and then scroll away so that later on I can watch them fresh with my wife. Like those, you're the two accounts that she's like, no, those are the ones we watch together. How are you? How are your sandwiches this week?
Doing pretty good. Sandwiches this week have been not the best, but also not the worst. So I guess that's good for what I do.
Yeah. It's really cool. I've been watching your content for a little while. I will say, like, I was late to the party. I was also late to TikTok, so like, I was late to everything. But my wife really fell in love with your content when the McElroys did their full Wild Magic table, because we watched all the McElroy stuff together. So my first big question for you: did Justin's toilet sandwich make up for the cumin sandwich?
Wait, you mean the one that he put in his
The
toilet?
one that he put in the toilet, yes.
Because he's also responsible for my
Right.
toilet sandwich.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I don't think that there's any, like, there's no bad blood. There's no, like, revenge or anything here. I mean, I brought it all on myself. I literally said, hey, I give you guys carte blanche to come up with a list of, 18 ridiculous things for me to do. But I joined them on stage at a live show in Detroit where they ate a very cold fast food Frankenstein sandwich, and I think that more made up for it than anything else.
It's delightful. Yeah. I remember watching that video when they said a tablespoon of cumin spread evenly. Because my wife and I watched it when they like made the video, so well before you had eaten your sandwich, and my wife and I were both like, that seems like it would be inedible. And turns out pretty accurate.
Honestly, the only way that I think I got it down was because that sandwich had like multiple like wet elements. Like it was a weird one where it was like peanut butter and a couple sauces. Like it was almost all like sauce type things and then a bunch of cumin, which is the only way that it was possible to eat.
Yeah, it was. I remember their first Clubhouse after that. They were like started the episode. They're like, "No, we saw it. We owe Jake an apology." How was that partnership? How did that come about? I mean, you've done, like, I'm wildly jealous of you every time because you have the coolest partnerships ever. Like, it's amazing and it's so exciting.
I mean, I still don't know how. I'm still completely blown away. Like the fact that I have now worked with the McElroy brothers on multiple occasions blows my mind. Like I've been listening to the Adventure Zone since, I mean, over 10 years.
Yeah.
Been a fan of a Bim Bam and kind of all of their other stuff, from that for years before I ever had any sort of like following online. And then for it to culminate this way is insane. And it's just cool because I just made content that I thought was cool and they also thought it was cool. And so that led to partnerships. Like I remember the day that Justin McElroy followed me on TikTok. I got the notification and I was like, what? This is cool. I showed my wife. I sent him, so typically when somebody that I know that's like a big deal follows me on TikTok, which has happened a couple times to where now I have kind of procedure, which is to do nothing. I literally assume that they don't, that it's, but there's this weird thing on TikTok where you can sometimes accidentally send somebody this like waving emoji.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes you might do it on purpose, but most of the time it's an accident. But that happened when Justin followed me. I got a wave emoji from him. So I took that as the opportunity to just respond and say, hey, thanks for following me. Big fan, followed you for a long time. You know, cool. Like, thanks for following me. That's all I did. Like 3 to 6 months go by. And then I get a response to that message that says, hey, guess who just figured out there's direct messages here on TikTok? And it was Justin. And he's like, so that was like, it's not that he ignored me or he just didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
So once he did, though, he was like, we like actually talked, and he was like, you know, if we can ever do something, let's do it. And then I had the idea. I had a new season of Roll for Sandwich coming up, and I was like, what if you guys? So one of my favorite things that they do on Mabim Bam every year is the naming of the year, where they just sit and brainstorm, the three of them, ridiculous ideas for the name of the coming year.
Yeah, shout out to Fungalore. He heard your wish.
Yes. So that, I think that had just happened or something. And I was like, basically, I just want that. But, come up with ridiculous things for me to do with sandwiches. And they were all about it. So, yeah. And then made an awesome series of videos from that.
Yes. Yeah. So good. Because, it obviously, like, their Wild Magic Table, phenomenal. But also then it had the added bonus for your content of every time you rolled on it, you just got to show a clip of them being silly and funny. And it's just like, oh, that's just good stuff for your videos. Of just like, hey, I got jokes every video for this.
That was fun.
Yeah, I got to interview the three of them somewhat recently, and I drink a lot of caffeinated sparkling water, I should say, and I had one sitting, and I was like, I want to open it as soon as Justin starts talking, and I was like, but that's going to be so early in the interview, and if the joke doesn't land, the whole interview is just going to be so bad. And so I very cowardly waited until the end, and Justin did say grip it and rip it when I did it. So that was, I got something out of it. But yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I know you started the series obviously with just like hey, what can I do while I'm home with my kid?
Mm-hmm.
I can make sandwiches and eat them, and have have a very randomness. But it's obviously evolved. What season are we in now? Is it 4 or?
So it's 7.
7? Wait, have I fully? All right, 7. I'm not even close.
Here's the thing: I don't really talk about what season it is.
Fair,
like, except when a new season starts. And it's only for my own, like, basically it's, if I have to take an extended break, then that's when a new season starts. So, it's 7 now, and basically that's just to organize things in my head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This interview series, like I've done at least one interview every week for a little over a year now, and I think I'm in season 3 or 4. I don't remember because there's no breaks in them. Mm-hmm. Mine is usually just like when Dimension 20 ends a season, and I can get like a big end of the season crew interview. I'm like, that's my finale, and then I start over. But there is no difference in content. Yeah, but it's obviously like has exploded into such a thing. It's funny going back and even reading some of your older interviews where you're like, yeah, I just cracked 1 million followers or whatever. And you're at 2.7 now, I think.
2.3 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny because like I'm sure for you, because like I can't keep track of. I have like 60,000. I can't keep track of everybody who follows me, like when like the new numbers pop up. So the only time I ever know is like with yours, I'm sure, is like it pops up and it says like you get the new like direct message option.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Of like, hey, there's a person you know. And oh man, speaking of the wave, My least favorite thing on TikTok, I think, it's probably not my least favorite thing, but is when you can't send a message before you've hit the wave button. It's like, oh, just I need to ask them something. Please don't make me start with the wave. Like, um, but I remember when you followed me, and I was like, oh, this is really exciting. And I also have a similar policy of like, don't send him anything. Just be like, in case it was a mistake, and they just like they hit the plus as they were scrolling past. Yeah, but I mean, some of those other really cool, like we mentioned, like obviously the McElroy collaboration, but also Dimension 20, multiple collaborations at this point. I don't know how many people sent me. I think I only got tagged once in your most recent video, but like a dozen people sent it to me because you had merch that is not in the store yet, and that's wild. How did that one come about? I assume similar vibe of like they've just like sent you a DM. They're like, "Hey, you want to do this?"
So that is one of the like earliest bigger like celebrity things that happened to me was that Sam has been a fan of Roll for Sandwich since very early on. Was commenting on early videos, just like psyched about it. We didn't do any sort of partnership like for a while. It was already, he was just there in my comments. I mean, he's been there the whole time. So,
right.
But he really has for Roll for Sandwich. So, just genuinely liked what I was doing. And then, I'm trying to think of what the first. So, I think before we ever did an ad together, I had basically I remember what it was. So I was looking to get a logo made. So this is way before Roll for Sandwich had its own logo, anything like that. I had posted to my mutuals, does anybody know a good graphic designer? And Sam sent me a personal email with a list of people who have done stuff for Dropout and College Humor that he's worked with, of people that I could like reach out to get a logo made. And one of those people is actually who made the logo. Which is crazy to me that Sam was like, here's some industry contacts. Like he was just very nice and very approachable. And so after that, and after some like little interactions here and there, I had my first big like business trip for Roll for Sandwich. Paramount invited me to come help promote the D&D movie, which was not this past March, but the March before that, I think. And so I was going to be in LA. And so I emailed Sam and was like, hey, I'd love to like meet you, grab a drink. And he was totally down for it. It didn't end up happening, unfortunately, but it was just kind of started that like ability to talk to somebody like they're a person and remove the mystique of this person is famous or whatever. And so after that, he was like, hey, we'd love to sponsor an episode of Roll for Sandwich. Did that first, I think that was back when the Ravening War was coming out. Was the first one I did. And then since then they've sponsored the show, gosh, 6 or so times. Like one of my more like continuous supporters, which is great. And so a lot of the ads they've done recently have been to promote their new merch. So I happened to get a box of stuff that's new and different and not out yet. So that's cool.
I saw people, oh boy, because there were Starstruck dice and people were like, are we getting Starstruck 2? And I'm like, I don't know. Please stop asking me questions. I don't even have the dice. I certainly don't know what's coming. It's so cool. I have having talked to a lot of folks at Dropout. I'm counting you because they have paid you to do work. Because most of their people are freelance anyway. So like anyone who's ever been paid by Dropout. If counting you, you are the 56th person I've talked to who has been paid by Dropout in some way. And that's not counting like repeats. And so like I've also experienced that of like talking to them like they're human beings is genuinely the way to go. They seem to really enjoy that. It's treating them like people. Who would have thought? It's really cool. I always get so excited when I see, like I said, obviously very jealous, but that's because that's who I am by nature. But like, I always get so excited when I see like a sponsored by Dimension 20 or whoever, but like especially Dimension 20 because I'm like, this is awesome. This is content I know, and like I'm excited they're out here like helping you make presumably better sandwich, but I mean, I guess it's not really up to
better
them.
Content.
Yes, better content. Yeah. And obviously, like you've also now taken this to a lot of live shows, including with some Dropout Dimension 20 folks. I got to see you and Amy Vorpal roll sandwiches together at Gen Con. At what point did you realize like, oh, this could be live? I could do this live. I just had to buy a bunch of stuff, and like people will show up and watch this.
I mean, that's been a developing thing. I don't know if there was ever a point where I was just like, this could be a thing. Like, it was more... So, I got booked for my first convention, January 2023. So, beginning of last year. And that was just a, like, show up, do some panels type of a thing. But then the next one that I did that year, they were like, we want to do Roll for Sandwich. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be flying there, so you guys need to buy all of the stuff. And I basically like figured out how to make it happen. And I think every live appearance has been better than the one before it because I've learned stuff from it. Like that first one that we did at that con, it was honestly probably not, I mean, it was like you wouldn't have known it at the time, but it was not a good show. So like each iteration of the show has gotten better because I've learned what not to do basically. And the first, like that first one that we did, the con was kind of too involved with it. And that's fine, but they don't understand. Like I know what is appealing about my videos, and a lot of that is like what I'm doing, and what I'm like being able to interact with people. I mean, not directly in the videos, but like live, like, and I don't know. I don't need to get into all the minutia, but basically, it's gotten better each time because I've learned what from each individual thing, and it's been like 2 years now to where I have it like a thing that's actually like fun to go see. I think
it was very fun. So. I really appreciated you had a like dedicated sandwich builder at Gen Con, which meant you could just keep talking and rolling and like engaging with everyone.
Things I learned.
Yeah, no, you mentioned you're like we used to not have this, and I was like, that's a very smart move of just like I need a sandwich guy here because there's no editing. I can't just edit around like, and now my sandwich is ready.
Yes.
It was also super fun. You know, like you obviously incorporated like besides Amy rolling, but like audience members could come up and roll and build sandwiches as well, which is such a fun idea because I'm sure lots of people, obviously you have lots of people who have followed in your footsteps in rolling for things, whether it's pizza, sushi, barbecue, whatever. And a lot of people, I think, that would just enjoy the concept of roll for sandwich, but don't want to put in the, I have 6 different kinds of bread ready, like that level of commitment. And so like the live shows become super fun because people can experience it without having to do the hard work of having ingredients.
Yeah. It also is nice, like, if I'm traveling somewhere to do a live show, and we're getting all of these ingredients, like, that way we're not throwing away a bunch of ingredients, because we're inviting multiple people up on stage and eating more sandwiches that way. Hoping to use up stuff, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I have a Patreon, and I ask every time like I'm going to set up an interview, I ask people like, hey, is there any questions you would like to ask? And of course, someone wanted to know like, is there a sandwich he wasn't able to finish? Like, and I don't think you have, right? Like, I think you finished everything.
Yeah.
Which is impressive. And someone else wanted to know, and I feel like you've answered this question very recently, but I think worth asking, is it possible to have too much pickle on a sandwich?
Yes.
You got to be close with pickle water, pickle bread, cucumbers.
Yeah, that sandwich. So anyone who's played like a fair amount of TTRPGs knows that the dice do ridiculous things. But I have a lot of people who follow me that are just regular people, just all kinds of people, and when the dice do something like that, I just have to shake my head, because I'm like, there are so many people who are not going to believe that this isn't like fake, that I didn't like write this. It's like, no, when I started with pickle as the bread, and then both the veggies were pickles and cucumbers, and then it finished with me squirting pickle juice on it for the sauce, I'm like, no one is going to believe that I didn't fake this.
Yeah. Look, as anyone will tell you, the dice tell their story. For us in the D&D community, yeah, it's very funny to hear you, like, because obviously you still start your videos with like, immediately in my brain was like, it's not D&D World and Beyond, but it is something to that effect. And yeah, it obviously like started. I mean, obviously the account is based on a novel that you're still working on. I assume.
Slowly. I had 2 kids.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Look, I've only got one, and I get so few things done. Like I fall behind on television shows, and I'm like, never catching up. It's the end. But yeah, obviously, like, started in such a different place, and I know you talked about like you started this. I believe your daughter. So you were home with your daughter, and you're like, what can I film that I can film during the day when I'm home with her, when I've got a free minute. At what point did you? Is there a point where you're like, this is way beyond anybody who cares about D&D? The dice are a mystery to them.
I mean, it. Yeah, like you said, I started my videos saying, good afternoon, D&D TikTok. And then that quickly became D&D TikTok and beyond, because I had so many people commenting like, I don't know a thing about D&D, but I love your videos. And that happened pretty quickly. Like when I started the channel, I was posting stuff about D&D, and I, had people who followed me. I think when the first video blew up, I had like 1,000 followers or something. Like I had just gotten past the TikTok milestone of being able to go live, which is 1,000 followers. So I did that, and like from the first video, I had people coming in from outside of that sphere of it got out to the greater populace of TikTok, which I'm thankful for. Yeah, so it very quickly became more than just D&D people.
Yeah. You've also done a bunch of charity work, which is really cool. I had reached out to you at one point to see if I could steal your full introduction, because I had done it with Don Marshall, the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy, and I specifically did it because Don and I are friends when he was on vacation and didn't have cell phone service. So I started a video where I was like, welcome to obscure Lord of the Rings facts. And got a bunch of people tagging him in the comments, and I just refused to acknowledge that I had stolen it from him, and waited then the like 5 days until he got home and texted me and was like, yeah, it worked. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I'd wanted to like steal your idea explicitly for a like, because it's just easy bait on, I mean, TikTok is falls prey to that all the time. I always think of the person that said penis butter pie, and then everyone stitched that video, and it's like they're just monetizing you by you doing this. Like it was a trick, and you fell for it. And I was like, oh, it would be really fun to start like hello D&D TikTok and beyond. Or good afternoon D&D TikTok and beyond. Welcome to Roll for Sandwich, and then have a bunch of people be like, "You stole this. This isn't yours." And you very kindly said, "Don't do it." But for a good reason, which is you don't like it when people get in comments sections of other people who do roll fours and are like, "Hey, you stole this," and I was like, "That's fair." Mine was going to be explicitly stealing it, but that would encourage bad behavior. What is it like having so many copycats? Isn't the right word. People inspired by what you do to make their own rolls for.
It's for one thing, it's a huge honor. Like, it's so cool that so many people like what I do and are like such fans that they want to try it themselves. Like, that's super cool. It's also really like it's weird because anyone can start a roll for whatever series. Like, I'm not in charge of it or anything like that, but I get like attributed to it and connected to it in ways that can sometimes be problematic. Like, I don't so for one thing, I'll get tagged in people's videos like, you know, this is such a cool idea, you should collaborate with Roll for Sandwich. I get so many of those that it's not possible for me to collaborate with all of them. And then I get like certain fan bases will get like mad at me all of a sudden because I've been ignoring somebody or whatever else. It's like, no, I'm just one guy with 2 kids trying to keep up with my own content and like just live, and I can't just be like, I'm sorry. Like, there's so many people out there doing this concept now, and I get tagged in all of them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how people like can think that, like, I see a lot of stuff that on there, but I can't see all of it, and I don't know why people assume that I do see all of it and are like ignoring it. I just don't understand it. But so it's complicated basically. Like, it's cool, you know, in a lot of ways, but also sometimes annoying. But you know, I try to be like there's a part of me, and I think this is true for anybody, like, I put in a lot of work to this to make it what it is, and like it's hard to not feel like it belongs to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's this, like, obviously Roll for Sandwich specifically and all the work I've put into that, like, yes, like, if somebody goes around start using my logo or whatever, like, there's gonna be a problem. Like, I have a copyright on Roll for Sandwich. Like, so if somebody goes and starts trying to sell sandwiches or something under Roll for Sandwich, like, that's my livelihood. We're gonna have to have a talk. But like, the concept of rolling dice to randomize things, like, I didn't create that. I don't control that. But it's hard sometimes. Like, so I learned this lesson back when I was a touring musician. It's like, just when you it's hard when you see other people in the same space as you succeeding to not think of it as a competition, or to not be like, why isn't that me? Or they're like taking, like, success isn't a limited resource. Like, just because somebody is succeeding here or succeeding there doesn't mean that they're taking that away from you. Like, it's much better if we can all like work together to succeed so that we can all succeed. Like, and so I have to fight my own like selfish feelings at times to be like, you know, I put all this work into making Roll for Sandwich what it is, and then this person is profiting off of Roll for whatever because of the work that I did. It's like, not know. Like, I need to not think that way, you know? And that's what I try to do. And I try to, like, be, you know, as long as people are being respectful to me, and, like, you know, there have been very few people doing stuff like that have been, like, I don't know, directly hostile to me or whatever. Like, if that's your vibe, like, okay, I'm not gonna put in more effort to you, whatever. But, like, generally people have been, like, good, decent people. And so, like, yeah, there's no reason not to work together as much as we can. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll say saying it's pretty cool but can be annoying is a pretty solid descriptor of all of the internet. Like, it's pretty cool but can be annoying. Yeah, I will say the only issue I ever have with like Roll for imitators is I am just so bitter when there isn't a possibility of a bad outcome. I'm like, no, you've missed the point. We're here because we want to watch the car crash. We're happy when it doesn't, but like we're not gonna look away when it's all pickles all the way down. Like we want to see that chance. Like you got to have a nat one in there. Like it's gotta. What's your catch up is the question you should ask yourself before you start your Roll for series. Yeah, it's really cool that like I remember, yeah, like I've seen a bunch of imitators. I would say like I can't imagine getting tagged in every one of those videos. I miss some of my tags, and people only tag me in dropout content sometimes. Like it's still a thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't see that one. Like I get into a comment section and I see my own name tag, and I'm like, oh, I missed this completely. I can't imagine what it's like trying to deal with your comments as well as, you know, like obviously like that brand of just like, hey, I made a cool thing that people like. Please don't be mean to me about it. Say someone else is curious. Obviously, so we're in season 7, which I know now, which means season 8 has to be coming sometime. Any thoughts on like it feels like more than a cantrip, but like a pressing spell that you'll press a space.
So I currently have like a pan fry spell, and that is mostly because my stove is always accessible, whereas a lot of things that it's weird being a creator with 2+ million followers and like what people equate that with in their minds. Like, I have a tiny kitchen. Like, I have no counter space at all. And people are like, you should have a sandwich press. You should have a bigger toaster. You should have this and that. And I'm like, I don't have room for what I currently have. I have 2 sandwich presses. They're in my basement in boxes because I don't have room. Like, if I get that out, I'm putting it on the dining room table to use it, and then I have to clean it and put it away that same day, or my whole like house is going to be taken over by dirty stuff. So like it's like I have been trying my hardest to figure out a new solution as far as like, ideally what I need is a office space outside of my house that also has a kitchen attached to it that is not prohibitively expensive every month in order to like do things the way I want to do them.
You need a sandwich shed is what you need. Yeah.
And that's just not like, I've been working with my realtor for like the past year to try and find a place like that to rent around here, and it's just, we've got nothing so far. So I do what I can out of my house, out of my own kitchen, which means like only being able to film when my children are quiet, which generally means asleep or out of the house.
Yeah.
And so like sandwich press is a great idea, and ideally in an ideal Roll for Sandwich world, we would have that. I don't plan to institute that anytime soon until the situation for filming is different, which is the answer for a lot of questions that people ask. Like, have you ever thought about doing a series where you take old sandwiches that failed and like add stuff to them or change the recipe to make them good sandwiches? That's an awesome idea. I've thought of that since probably season 1. Like, I think I want to do that series. I am at capacity right now for the amount of content that I'm putting out, purely based on like scheduling my own home life. And that's even been, I've had to miss an episode here or there recently because of that. Like, I want to do more, but I can't with the time that I have currently, and it's more constraints than just like me not doing more work. Like, it's physically impossible at the moment unless I had a different like living situation or a different whatever. But like, if I was if this happened while I was a single man, like, that would be a whole different story. Like, that would shape how I like figured out my living situation, everything else. But this is a job. It's the best job I've ever had. This is a job that I have in addition to having a family that I have to figure out how to make both of them work at the same time. So like, but I always appreciate ideas from people for spells, for ingredients, for stuff like that, and I try to incorporate as many of them as I can, barring things that make it impossible. I also have this weird, like, I try to balance, like, I have a lot of followers from all over the world, a lot of strangers, unfortunately, that I don't know. Like, I try to minimally post about my family, especially like specifics. And so it's hard because a lot of people aren't aware, or they can't be made aware of the things that are going on that make things hard to produce content. But it's like, I want to respect them, my family, especially like I have little kids that cannot consent to having all of their personal stuff out on the internet, from that. I mean, they're very young. And so that's my first priority. And sometimes that makes it more difficult for me because I have to deal with a bunch of comments that say, you're just making a sandwich, why do you have to skip an episode? You're just making a sandwich or whatever. It's like,
that makes me so angry. Like, oh boy, like, just the idea that like, hey, monkey, dance for us. It's like, shut up. Like, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I have hours of videos that my son has made, because he knows that I make videos on the internet, and so like, he's like, he used to say video and it was my favorite thing in the world, and now he says video, and it's those things where you're like, no, go back, don't stop getting older. But like, I've never posted any of them, but it's just like, I take my phone, I set it up on my little tripod, and he like hits record. He usually kicks me out of the room, and then he like just has like a full conversation, and it's like a 10-minute video of just him being the cutest person that's ever existed. And at one point, oh man, he posted a video. I'm from St. Louis originally, and we were going back to St. Louis, and he was going to go to his first baseball game. We were going to go see the Cardinals, which is my like lifeblood. As a Midwesterner, I'm sure you understand, like that deep connection to a specific sports team area. And he posted a video, or he made a video where he was like, I get to go to a baseball game. Isn't that cool? And I was like, how do I share this with the St. Louis Cardinals without putting his face on the internet? They need to see this and reward him for this. But I made the right choice and didn't. But yeah, it's also like, I would say, like, for your content, like, it's not like you're just making a sandwich. You're making a sandwich out of like oftentimes wild ingredients, like reindeer meat this close to Christmas. Like, But speaking of, it is at 11:45. It's so close.
It's very close, yes.
I'm excited because I'm going to capture you posting a sandwich onto TikTok. The most thrilling thing that anyone will ever see.
Yes.
Just you holding up your
Just me
phone.
holding up my phone, having the draft that's already there.
Yeah.
And if TikTok's mobile app would implement the scheduled post feature,
Oh, God.
I wouldn't have to do this. Instagram, YouTube, all of these places have it. But no, it's Friday. People expect my video at noon, which means I have to sit here right now during a live interview and post my video.
I mean, it is maybe Lemonade will have it. That's the thing that's coming, right? I don't know what's happening.
Lemonade is not even. It's just owned by ByteDance, so it's going to be banned also if anything is banned. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. All right. I don't know what else is on my For You page right now, but there's the little uploady thingy.
Ooh, I love
in the corner. It's happening.
It's happening. How was the sandwich today?
Let's see. Today's sandwich was actually Monday's sandwich. Because like I said, I've missed some episodes here and there. So Monday's video had to be moved to today because Wednesday's was sponsored. It was okay. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It was this whole week has been kind of middle of the road, which I guess I can't, like I said, I can't complain based on what things could have been.
Right. Yeah. It is always a like such an interesting thing to be like, well, this could have been the worst thing I've ever eaten. And it wasn't, so 6.5 is fine. I didn't have to make this into a ball.
Yes, my rating scale has evolved over the years. Because it's funny, you said 6.5. I think the first roll for sandwich was a 6.5. And it was literally like pastrami, mustard, and pickles. It was like the most normal sandwich ever. But also, I was like, I didn't know where things were going. I gave it a 6.5 because I'm like, yeah, it could have been better. Now I have 350 sandwiches to compare things to. And when I say sandwiches, I mean the breadth of
creations,
possible hell and heaven and everything in between when it comes to sandwiches.
Yeah, it was funny when I reached out to you for an interview, you were like, hey man, if you're going to get specific, you got to let me know beforehand. I don't remember every sandwich I've eaten. I was like, yeah, no, super fair. Yeah, I am. It's so interesting. Like, obviously, yeah, you're what it will be 3:42 today. I'm just refreshing your page so that I can comment that I watched you post it. But obviously, because it's TikTok, who knows how long between posting it and when they're like, yeah, people can watch this now.
It's 68% right now.
Okay,
so you've got a little time.
Yeah. It's always so much fun. Like, it's also I was curious. Like, obviously, well, first of all, you get some. Which, speaking of the bad ones, your sandwich mimic Earl gets to eat some dice. What happens to all those dice that Earl gets to eat? Do they just go into a giant collection?
I am a little bit of a collector. So I do have a lot of dice now. And I people have suggested ways to get rid of them. Mostly not D&D people because they don't understand what it's like to be a dice goblin.
Mm-hmm.
But I have like a display that I'm kind of working on that it will also probably never get finished in its current form because it would hopefully move to an actual office when I have one. But basically, I have all of them, and even though Earl eats them, like I don't get rid of them or never use them again or something like that. Like typically, it's just for fun. If I had more time and maybe employees or something, then I could keep track of which dice have done what sandwiches and figure out if there's a best set or something that I have. Um, I've thought of that. Like I want to make like a spreadsheet of all of them and do all this stuff because I'm a nerd,
Yeah.
but I just don't have the time. So currently they go into the display if there's room, or into a box until the next time that I use them, if there is a reason to use them. Like themed dice get pulled out more often. I have like holiday sets that I've used multiple times on the show, or on the weirdly rare situation where I have an episode to film and I don't have a new set from a fan to show off, and I have to go pull dice from my collection. More often than not, I'll grab a set that like a creator made for me, because for one thing, that's super cool that I have this custom set of dice that they made for me, and second, like then I get another chance to tag that creator, and hopefully get them some more, exposure.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, nothing happens to the dice other than they end up in my basement.
That's fair. I'd say it's also really cool, like, when you hit those 10 out of 10s, there are people then that are like, well, I got to make it and try it. And I even saw someone, Liam, I don't know what Liam's last name is. He's a food guy, Major Pickle Sandwich, pretty recently.
Yeah, I saw that. That was cool. That's you. There's like a set group of people, Sandwich Talk,
Yeah.
that recreate my tens now as kind of a
an homage.
Yeah,
I guess. I don't know if that's the right.
Yeah. So they'll like very tradition. Maybe is what I was looking for. Traditionally, they will remake the tens and see if I'm crazy or not for giving them a 10. And sometimes it shows my biases a little bit. The fact that I have eaten some bad things that maybe inflate my ratings here and there, but if you had eaten the things that I had eaten, you would probably also rate things that way. But it's fun. Sandwich Dad, Sandwiches of History, Sandwich Tribunal, all will recreate these sandwiches and see if they're as good as I said they are. And yeah, that's always fun to see. It's been happening now since I think episode 42 was the first time that they did that, all the way back in season 1. It's fun.
It's impressive that you can keep track of which season that is. Just episode 42 was season 1. Like,
yeah. Well, I try to keep the seasons to 50 episodes apiece. It kind of works, but doesn't always work. But
yeah. I say, like, I think I said something earlier, but like you've also done a bunch of cool charity work, like you did, or you were taking shots at condiments, which is a thing that I deeply appreciate, because last January I did a very similar thing where I was taking shots of condiments on a live stream for every like $100 I raised or something stupid, and culminated with me eating a spoonful of the last dab from Hot Ones, which turned out to be the best possible way to eat it, because I just swallowed it without it touching my tongue.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, because I've eaten it on chicken wings. It's brutal. And I was like, oh, this wasn't like, didn't feel great afterwards, but I also had like a shot of Tabasco, which nearly killed me, because it turns out too much vinegar. But yeah, it's really cool to see like you expand out into this excuse me, charity. Also, other like causes other than, I mean, not that eating sandwiches is a cause, but helping using a platform for good is really cool. I don't really have a question. Just thank you for doing cool things.
Yeah.
But speaking of cool things, you posted your sandwich now from this week. Obviously, we're coming up on holiday season, so I'm assuming you're going to have some holiday ingredients. Anything you can tease that's coming up that's like you've been thinking about?
Hopefully. So it's complicated because
we mentioned before we started talking, you're like, I work on a lot of stuff that I can't talk about yet, and
right.
I feel you, because I'm in the same boat of like I'm doing things that like I can't talk about yet.
I mean, I can say that 2025 is probably going to be the biggest year for Roll for Sandwich yet. There are some cool things happening that I can't talk about, unfortunately. I without getting into specifics, I can talk about there are 2 D&D projects, 2 actual plays that I am currently recording that will be released at some point in the coming year. And I will be sure to post about those when it happens. But so if you want to see me play TTRPGs, if you want to see me tell some more, I guess, less sandwich adjacent stories, tune into those. The best way to find that out, because TikTok and other platforms seem to suppress anything that takes you away from those platforms. So hopefully you'll actually see this interview when I post about it. But knightsofsandwich.com will take you to my mailing list. And that is the best way to get direct updates from me. And I will post about all the cool things that are coming. So you can see me be funny, hopefully, and also
do things other than eat sandwiches.
Yes.
Definitely be funny. I've seen you live. You're very funny. So yeah, that's super fun. Jake, thank you so much. Obviously, the tag is Adventures in Ardia. If folks want to, I think if you just Googled sandwich, you're probably near the top of the results.
Roll for Sandwich for sure. I have incredible SEO for nothing that I've done, other than, I guess, be consistent. But I come up first page for sure. So Roll for Sandwich, you'll find me.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Jake, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I've already commented on the sandwich video, although I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see it later with my wife after our son is in bed. That's when we watch TikToks together. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I'm excited for more sandwiches and other cool things to come. And I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.